topic very close to my heart and the market dynamics of the ever-vibrant ServiceNow ecosystem. I'm really delighted to have Richard Stubbs with us from DXC to discuss with recent developments. Very warm welcome to you, Richard.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for the invitation to join you.
Great, pleasure. And I'm not sure whether the audience is fully aware, DXCs, you guys are one of the pioneers in ServiceNow. You invested quite early in ServiceNow. Top of my mind, organization you acquired, Fruition Partners, pretty much one of the poster childs, most early cool kids on the block in ServiceNow. So you're quite steep in that. Richard, again, warm welcome. And just very briefly, rank and seal number. What exactly is your role? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So if I go back to where we started with ServiceNow, originally it was a service management engagement, and I used to look after service management for DXC Technology. We recognised that actually ServiceNow's got a lot greater capability than service management, and as we see ServiceNow go around that curve of capability, whether it's security operations, HR, ESG, right the way through to low code, no code. It wasn't just about service management. We needed companies that could actually, or staff that could actually grow and exploit that capability for customers. So we went on a journey of acquiring that capability, Fruition, and subsequently we did 7 acquisitions like that. And then we formed what we call our ServiceNow practice. We formed a strategic business group, and my role is I'm the global offering lead for DXC Technology's ServiceNow offerings.
Perfect. And perhaps allow me to build on that. I'm more happy to share some of the insights. HFS just published, I think it's the 5th time we did it, the findings, we call it Horizon, so our big ecosystem evaluation study of service provider capabilities. But as part of that, we talked to a lot of customers. And perhaps there's 3 points jumping to my mind. On one hand, I think probably not the broader market hasn't woken up to the fact that actually 50% of ServiceNow new revenues are outside IT, outside IT work-centric workflows. Many still believe ServiceNow is just ITSM or IT. I think much broader, and I think, Richard, you were alluding to it. And what we have seen for some time, but I think we see much more maturation around that. The next frontier for ServiceNow is industry solution. They started with initially as banking, telecommunications, a little bit the US federal sectors, but now we see more maturity, more depth of the offerings, but also new offerings like retail and others. So again, we're going quite deep, and it's not the old world of IT-centric workflows, just IT-centric workflows, I have to say. What's new, I think, what we learned, interesting new topics, ERP modernization. So we see some service provider capabilities, not just enabling the journey towards a wondrous world of HANA, but also supplanting some of the core ERP functionality of SAP. Very interesting. Otherwise, again, not obvious to many hardcore cloud operations. So let's get a sense how the market is changing, and I spoke about some of the dynamic in the ecosystem. Richard, having said that, what do you guys seeing in the market? Is it similar? What's your key observations where the market is heading at the moment?
I think what we talk about with DXC Technology is what we call essential evolution. DXC Technology is probably recognized as being an infrastructure services company historically, and we're making that shift from GIS to GBS. And I think ServiceNow are making that shift from infrastructure services, IT modernization, into the industry plays. We have significant depth in a number of industries. DXC is one of the largest insurance software providers globally. And when you start to bring that together with our ServiceNow capability, where we've engaged with customers and we've done the more traditional ServiceNow plays, IT modernization, ITSM, ITOM, ITAM, we've gained the trust of the client, and we've got deep knowledge of the customer's business from our relationships in DXC's broad technology stack. And that gives us the opportunity to start looking at how we can exploit ServiceNow, exploit its workflow capability to support customers in the broader business value generation. Examples of that would be, and if I talk particularly about our manufacturing and our insurance space as an example, within insurance, there are a plethora of systems and solutions out there that support the insurance industry. But when you start to look across all of those and you have a user who is going to transact in an insurance play, they're probably going to touch a number of those different systems. Now, ServiceNow is not going to try and be the system of record. It's not going to try and replace those insurance systems, but the opportunity to understand the business process workflow that a user consumes and use ServiceNow as the system of action sat across those systems of record, that allows us to automate. It allows us to capture data, to perform analytics, to bring AI to the table. And I know that's a buzzword in the system at the moment. When you start to think of the power, the potential power of using the ServiceNow platform in that way, so you're exploiting its workflow capability and you're providing a good customer experience, but all of a sudden you're joining those disparate systems together for whatever that particular business process is that the customer's trying to execute. That, I think, is a game changer for insurance customers. If I move on to manufacturing, it's a different type of challenge in the manufacturing environment. So what we've seen is that we've got the ESG piece from ServiceNow, and we know how important ESG is in the manufacturing industry. But what we've also got now with IoT starting to really become accessible is ServiceNow's OT module. And again, you start to think of business process workflows in the manufacturing space, the touching manufacturing equipment. And it's not just in manufacturing, in energy, in pharmaceutical. So all of these areas, how do you make those business processes real? How do you workflow them? What you have to do there is you have to expose the operational technologies to the ServiceNow platform. And again, this is where I look at one of our advantages in the market is we have offerings such as our DXC Signal offering, which is a 5G PLTE network where we can expose operational technologies in a secure manner to ServiceNow, build a workflow that acts on the data that's coming out of those operational technologies. And now you're starting to bring to life manufacturing business problems and help customers exploit that data. So I think I started that conversation with something called essential evolution. You don't have the right, you have to earn the right to be able to have that conversation with a customer. And you do that by gaining their trust. And typically what we've seen is where we've done strong engagements around IT modernization, the traditional plays, then we go and have a conversation with the customer. And the question's usually, what if we did this? How would this help you? What do you think the business value is you can gain? And it's a bit of a negotiation with the customer to try and understand. Sometimes that particular area is not going to be beneficial. Sometimes you find real pain points. Then you dive in and then you can help the client get that business value.
No, thanks for that, Richard, and thanks for staying clear of the hype of Gen AI. Otherwise, I think don't get me started on this one. But can I just double click on what you said? Can you just bring it a bit to life? Can you almost pick be it insurance, be it something else, client examples, and go a bit in depth? What is really what you're delivering? How does it feel for a client? All the topics you just raised.
And I'll pick a very simple example. So we were fortunate to be joined on stage at Knowledge 23 by two of our customers, where we deliver managed services, where we've delivered the IT modernization journey, coming back to that essential evolution piece, the essential part of that. The example actually that the client quoted was they work in the financial sector, in the pension space. And it's a very simple example. Their employees, when a customer contacts them, what they found was a frustration that they needed before they could actually enter a dialogue with the customer. They needed to go into multiple different systems to get the client's history, to understand what transactions had been done, because just like the insurance space, lots of different systems that are there. And that took them probably an hour, 2 hours was typically the time scale that was being quoted. So using the low-code, no-code capability, using the platform with platforms capability, and the API capability, a very simple application was developed that allowed that employee to enter the details, and it pulled the data from those systems and presented them in a matter of seconds, maybe a couple of minutes. It presented them with the history of the customer that they were engaging with. And what that allows them to do, if you think about it, is whilst they're on the phone with the customer at the first point of touch, they've got accessibility to that information. It's a much better customer experience and it's a much better employee experience. So that's a very simple example, but were you to take that and extrapolate that? So if I think about manufacturing, if I think about a manufacturing process where out in the field, there are many devices that are being used to actually manufacture goods or create a product. Those systems have got controllers on them. Those controllers have got firmware. And when that firmware goes out of date, that manufacturing product stops working. And that equates to downtime in production, which equates to a financial number. To be able to expose those plant machineries to ServiceNow's OTSM capability, the CMDB, to capture the details around the firmware, and then to be potentially to be able to not just warn someone that that's going to go out of date and potentially go down, but to actually, in an automated manner, act upon that. What you've done there is, I'm sure, by the way, there's plenty of reasons why plant machinery might go down, but in that particular use case, what you've succeeded in doing is mitigating that. You've taken that problem out of their business environment, so assured their systems, and there's a financial value that you can put on that. So those are two examples, quite straightforward in the first case, a little bit more complex in the second case, and usually how we would approach a customer around that is we'd understand their business problem, and what we'd look to do is a proof of value. And we'd jump in with our relationship with ServiceNow. We'd jump in with ServiceNow. We'd typically jump in with a partner in that space because neither ServiceNow or DXC are going to be experts in that edge for that particular piece of machinery. There are other players in the ecosystem who can help us with that. So we jump together, do a proof of value, look at the business outcome that we've realized, tweak it, and then if successful, then we'll join in together and we'll go and deploy that across that customer's business.
Great, Richard. Great insight. And I said, you guys are the pioneers and all the experience just oozing through. So thanks for that. I'm also very sure the next time we speak, then we can't even avoid talking about automation and AI, given the wondrous marketing world, and in particular, some of prowess of ServiceNow around those topics. I'm very sure we'll have to touch upon that. Richard, big thank you, and look forward to working with your next initiatives. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Tom.